With the release of Assassin's Creed Mirage, which I just dropped a review a few days ago of, you can check that out at the end of this video. I figured why not do an Assassin's Creed ranking video. We've done a few ranking videos here on this channel, and my ranking videos, they tend to get a little controversial. If you want to check those out, there will be a playlist so you can watch my controversial ranking list. I tend to have like a vastly different opinion from the rest of the community, which is why these videos get controversial. At the end of the day, people have to understand that just because someone values or views something differently than you doesn't mean that what you like, what you view, what you value is wrong. It's just an opinion video. Like, you might find the color purple to be the best color of all time, and I might say the color freaking gold is better than purple. It doesn't matter. Like, the color purple can still be your favorite color. It doesn't mean anything because I don't prefer purple. Anyways, like that's a very weird tangent to go on, but just to kind of like get into the video. I've played every single console release of Assassin's Creed. I'm a massive Assassin's Creed fanboy. Even the Chronicle games like India, Russia, and China are games that I've played. I've seen the movie, the very, very bad Michael Fassbender movie. I've seen like all the little shorts when it came to Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood Revelations. They had that like at their own little live action shorts that weren't like insane. But for this video, we are only going to be counting the main releases for this ranking video from the first game, and we also be including Liberations. Liberations isn't considered a main release, but I'm going to consider it in this video because I do think Liberation deserves way more appreciation than it gets. Ranking the games on what I think is the best. As always, it's just my opinion, and when I say ranking on the best, I'm not ranking it based on my favorites. I'm ranking it on what I feel like is actually like the better video games overall, not my opinions on what I prefer. My favorite video game might not even be in the top 5. It might be. You're gonna have to see, but just understand that favorite versus the best aren't necessarily the same thing. And another this I can give you, my favorite RPG of all time is Mass Effect. But I think Witcher 3 is the best RPG of all time. So that's an example of favorite versus best. It all gives some reasons I won't spend too much time on each individual game. Some games will have more time dedicated to them than others. Don't get butthurt if your favorite game is ranked lower. You can still love that game regardless of what a stranger on the internet thinks of it. So let's get started in the long disclaimer. You're not here for that. You're here to see the ranking. Number 14 on the list, so basically dead last. This game will shock no one that watches my Twitch streams or has seen my videos on Valhalla. I often refer to Valhalla as not only the worst Assassin's Creed game, but the only bad Assassin's Creed game. Valhalla is a bloated mess of a game with one of the most uninteresting stories I've experienced in my 31 years on this planet. Eivor, rather male or female, is boring and uninteresting. The literal only main character I could just not care about. Like, I just don't care about Eivor at all. The gameplay is okay compared to Origins and Odyssey. It's just an action game more than anything else. It feels more like an action RPG than it does an Assassin's Creed game. But the overall game, was just lacking. I found myself more interested in Basim and Hytham, whom are the only assassins in the game, more than the actual main character. Gameplay is more like a low-budget attempt at God of War, if anything. Valhalla is the worst of what Assassin's Creed has become when it comes to not really being a stealth-centered game and having too many powers. I'm not a big fan of like all the magical powers and abilities that the Odyssey and Origins. Now, I don't really want to say Origins. It's very, very faint in Origins, but like when it comes to Odyssey and Valhalla, there's a lot of powers. I just don't like it. It kind of like ruins the game, in my opinion. I don't want to be a superhero with the same abilities. I want to be an assassin. Coming in at 13 on the list, Assassin's Creed Rogue isn't a bad game. Shay is an interesting character. Most people hate Shay, but being the only main character we play as that switch from Assassin to Templar, which in lore we hear has happened more than once in reverse as well. But outside of some missions in Assassin's Creed 3 where you get to play as Haytham, we didn't really have a main character where that main character is a Templar, especially a former assassin. Rogue often gets forgotten and is a game that most haven't played because it released only on the Xbox 360 and PS3 a year after the Xbox One PS4 had already released. If you already made the jump to the latter, you didn't play this game. It did get a remaster for PS4 and Xbox One 4 years later after that, but most didn't really care. Overall, the game is okay, but feels more like a DLC for the much better Black Flag game than being able to be a game that stands on its own. Revelations is probably the most forgettable game from the early years of Assassin's Creed. Like Rogue, it isn't a bad game, but it's a game that didn't necessarily need to exist. It was Ubisoft trying to milk Ezio a little bit more one more time before moving on with the franchise. To this day, Ezio is the only character in Assassin's Creed to have had more than one main console entry. Is worst feature and part of what pulls it to this low to the list is the tower defense missions that I just didn't care about in Thorough Lane. At number 11 is Assassin's Creed Mirage. Mirage is a smaller, more linear experience compared to the last 3 AC entries when it comes to Odyssey, Origins, and Valhalla. I beat it in about 20 hours if you want like an idea of how much shorter it is compared to those games. Mirage is a game that markets itself as returning to the roots of the franchise, which for the most part, it does. It's pretty much an unofficial direct sequel or remake of the first Assassin's Creed game, though prequel will be a more accurate term to use since this game does take place 300 years before the events of Assassin's Creed 1. From having contract missions to having to go to like assassin bureaus to having to complete missions to rank up within the Brotherhood, it does a decent enough job to live off nostalgia while also having some unique things to allow it to separate itself from the original. But unfortunately, Basim and the story itself are the game's weak points. I made a very quick video years ago about Syndicate being overlooked. It more than any other Assassin's Creed game released at the worst time. It more than any Assassin's Creed game released at the worst time. This time was the peak of Assassin's Creed fatigue. People were burned out on the franchise and tired of the franchise. Much like with how sport fans felt Madden and FPS fans felt with Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed fans were tired of the yearly releases, and this came a year after the release of the most unfinished, buggy, broken Assassin's Creed game of all time, Unity. Syndicate was pretty much dead on arrival. It was unfortunate because Syndicate is actually a really good game with some pretty cool design choices and design ideas. The story was solid. The Fry twins are great characters. I lean more towards Evie than Jacob, but I've seen people who prefer Jacob over them. The aesthetic was lovely. The combat was fun and unique and different when it came to the zip lines and things like that. And being able to like kind of like stun lock enemies so you can like do finishers on them and be able to like get them to fight each other. There's like a lot of unique things in the combat that was like just made the game a little fun and different from what was out at that time with games Assassin's Creed. The Jack the Ripper DLC was a banging DLC. It's a very good game. A lot of people didn't even try. This game was the last traditional AC experience. After this, Ubisoft switched to an open world RPG format for the series. Speaking of Assassin's Creed Unity, as much of a meme the game became because of its bugs and glitches, Unity was actually a great game. The story was intriguing, Paris looks amazing, the parkour after the patches is some of the best parkour in the series. It's just pure, like just it's some of the best the series has ever had. None of the last 3 games can compete with it on the parkour level. Arno is a solid protagonist. He's not amazing, he won't like jump off the paper for you, but he's a passable serviceable protagonist, and the unique dilemma that he has is his childhood best friend and pretty much love interest is a Templar. Remember when I mentioned that Shay was an assassin turned Templar and so was Hatham? Well, in this game throughout it you have to witness the back and forth between Arno and Elise, an assassin and Templar who were in love with each other. One of the cool features Unity had outside of it, an actual decent multiplayer function, because that multiplayer in this game was pretty fun to do, was the time risk, where there will be moments throughout the game where there'll be like a break in time that will happen, where you will hear things from a different time period happening in the background. You might see some visions of things happening from like a different time period. Coming in number 8 is Assassin's Creed Liberations. Liberations is the only non-main game I'm added to this list, mostly because unlike the other handheld titles, this did get a console remaster, and I think it's deserving of being counted amongst the rest. Liberations definitely shows that it's a PSP game, but Ubisoft did a pretty decent job at remastering it and porting to consoles. The best or more unique features was Aveline being able to have disguises. As simple as it sounds, this franchise didn't really do disguises, especially not when it comes to like having it as a main component of the game. What added to the uniqueness of these disguises was that Aveline comes from different backgrounds. She's not just an assassin. She's someone who comes from multiple walks of life. Her mother was a slave, and so she was able to like go in disguise as a slave and be able to like intermingle with the slaves at that time. But her father was a wealthy French merchant, so she also could pass by in higher societies of that time. It's an all-in-all good game with clunky mechanics because it's a handheld game that got ported to consoles. But as I said, Ubisoft did a solid job. I find Aveline to be one of the most interesting characters in the franchise. Brotherhood is a solid Assassin's Creed experience. It had refreshed movement and combat from Assassin's Creed 2, but with it only being released a year later, this is before Ubisoft went to like a full yearly cycle for the game, you could see that the game needed more like work, and it needed more time. Ubisoft didn't put a lot into it. The game feels more like a DLC, just like how Roll feels like a DLC, than it does a full game. It's very short, it's very compact, but it's still a good experience that can stand on its own as an Assassin's Creed game. Regardless of that, the game has enough for you to really enjoy it, and it did further expand the story of the most mainstream assassin in the franchise. So number 6 is, this is where some people will start to roll their eyes at the video, because this is a lot of people in the community's favorite video game. This is their favorite Assassin's Creed game. Black Flag is most people's top game when it comes to this franchise, but it's not mine. Hell, if this was a list about favorites instead of being like a list of what I think is the best games, Black Flag wouldn't even be my top 10. But this is ranking about best games, not favorites. Black Flag is a great video game. It has very good story with a strong main character in Edward Kenway. Black Flag is such a good game that it features of being that its feature of being a pirate and being, based around selling the seas is the reason that the entire game Skull and Bones even exists. Ubisoft made Skull and Bones because of the popularity around Black Flag. Ubisoft wanted to cash in on how much people loved the boat combat from the game. Meanwhile, to this day, Skull and Bones hasn't even come out yet. Personally, I'm not really into pirates, which is a big reason why this game kind of falls further down the list. And that created like a big disinterest for me. The gameplay is where it falls for me compared to like the next 4 games on the list. It's not bad gameplay, but I'd rather play the next 4 games. Coming at number 5 is one to start it all. I love the original game, and it still holds up to this day. Altair is a hit or miss character. He's very deadpan, so some people might be disinterested in him since he isn't as outgoing as Edward or as charismatic as Ezio. But Altair for me is such a cool character. Gameplay wise, what I really like about the original, that more so than others on this list, is that you have to fall. You have this fall from grace story, which affects the start off by having like pretty much everything. Like you have like your in-game like gear, your in-game mechanics, all that kind of stuff. But Altair's decisions to get him demoted because of back to the rank of initiate, losing all your weapons that you have other than like a basic sword and hidden blade. You lose your health bars to like a base level. You have to work your way back up, improve yourself, prove that you've learned and matured, and you get all those things back. I can play this game every day and never get fatigued of it. I love AC1. I have a couple videos talking about Assassin's Creed 3, and both of them are basically me trying to make a case of how good this game is. The comments of those videos are a mixed bag, as some talk about how much they dislike the game, and others talk about how much they like the game, but it's not in their top 5. This is my favorite Assassin's Creed game, like just period. It's my favorite Assassin's Creed game. Outside of AC1, there isn't an Assassin's Creed game I've played as much as I've replayed AC3. I love it. Revolutionary War America is a great setting. I love the combat, the weapons you have, the atmosphere, the story. Gaiton is a great character in my opinion. I refuse to call him by that other name. It's my name to remember Gaiton. I'm gonna call him what if I'm gonna call him, damn it. Jokes aside, I enjoy him as a main character. Like Altair, he's kind of expressionless, but for Gaiton, it fits his broody Native American male character from that time period. As someone with some Native ancestry, I definitely have some bias towards that. The Tyranny of King George DLC is one of the best DLCs in a franchise, and frankly, if Gaiton acted in the main game the way that he is portrayed and how he grows in the DLC, I think more people will grow towards him and like him as a character. Odyssey, like Valhalla, isn't a real Assassin's Creed game in a sense of playing as an assassin at least. The assassins don't necessarily exist at this time of the game. Aya, wife of Bayek in Assassin's Creed Origins, is a descendant from Cassandra, whom is the canon main character of Odyssey. The option to play as Alexios only exists because member of Ubisoft leadership felt women couldn't sell a game, so they added Alexios as an option to play as. But primarily, Cassandra is the one who's considered the main character, who's considered the canon character when it comes to the timeline story of Assassin's Creed. But anyways, Odyssey is a phenomenal game. Yes, it has superpowers, and I said before that I hate having superpowers. You can fight Greek deities in this game. That kind of breaks a little bit of the immersion, in my opinion. Yes, deities have always been like a mainstay of Assassin's Creed, dating back to having kind of interactions with Juno. But what I mean by like it kind of breaks the immersion is you don't play these games to fight gods. This isn't God of War. You play these games because you want to be able to like experience historical areas and be an assassin. But everything about this game is just so lovely. The visuals, Cassandra as a character, her voice acting, the story, the gameplay, all of it. The post-launch content is the only real negatives I have with this game. Not the DLCs like that continue the main storyline, but the free content they added just kind of suck. Like a lot of the, again, furthering into like fighting deities and fighting Cyclops, things like that. I kind of just didn't like that kind of stuff. Coming at number 2, it actually pains me to have AC2 this high, because if this was a favorites list, it wouldn't be my top 4. I know that's crazy. Someone who wouldn't have AC2 in their top 4 when it comes to favorite Assassin's Creed games. But when it comes to being like an actual, the best video games, AC2 is number 2. AC2 is responsible for why this franchise is where it is today. As good as AC1 was, there wasn't really a direction with the game. Even Ubisoft didn't really know what they were going to do with it at that point. AC2 changed up a lot of what the original was. It wasn't as linear as AC1. You know, combat was more expanded. The scope of the location was bigger. The story was more in depth and longer. More player freedom with colors. Ezio can wear way more customization when it comes to the game. From head to toe, AC2 is a better video game than AC1, and how it evolved, and that evolution has gotten us to where we are today with the number of games that there is. If Ezio wasn't as popular of a character he is, if AC2 wasn't as good of a game that it was, Assassin's Creed might not be a franchise that exists anymore. You know, the franchise owes its continuing existence to Ezio character being as popular over as he is. Now, coming at number 1, the game that I think is the best Assassin's Creed game, Origins. I talk about Origins a lot. It was the perfect combination of Assassin's Creed and being an open RPG. Doesn't have the bloat and the drag of playing like Valhalla, and its story's a bit more focused than Odyssey. It has some of the best main character voice acting in the franchise in general. Bayek voice actor does an amazing job at this game. Is phenomenal. Egypt's such a great location. It's very fitting for this game. Egypt is such a great fitting location for this series. It was one of the top 3 most wanted locations since AC2. Egypt and feudal Japan are pretty much what fan bases wanted more than anything when it came to a location for an Assassin's Creed game, and Origins delivered in every single way that it could. It is a flawless game that revolutionized the franchise, bringing some fresh air into something that was dying. Remember what I said before. When Syndicate released, people were tired and done with this franchise, so Ubisoft took some time to make a better game. They didn't do a game that released a year later. They actually put some real time into Origins. You know, something different from what the fan base was used to was born out of it. No matter how much you do or don't like Odyssey and Valhalla, they exist because of Origins' success. The reception of Origins is why we even got Valhalla and Odyssey to begin with. You know, it's ironic that Origins was, you know, the birth of the revival of the franchise, but Valhalla was its death that made the franchise need another refresher. So that's it for my rank video. This video is actually recorded like literally the next day from like my review of Mirage, but you guys want to see this a few days after the review from Mirage. But hope you all enjoyed the video. You know, put your rankings in the comment section if you want to. Make your own video if you want to. Do whatever. It's y'all life. I'm just making videos. That's all I'm doing. I'll catch you guys on my live stream on Twitch. If you want to follow me, link in the box below. Being boy, Noobs Game Archer. I'll see you when I see you. I'm out of here. Deuces.